I'm a college student, but the story I'm about to tell happened around my senior year. It was the first time my friends and I went to a party. Everyone from our school was there. The party ended around midnight because the police were called due to noise complaints. My two friends and I were staying at my house just for the night because we had gotten pretty messed up. We were about 3 to 4 minutes away from my house when I saw a figure in the bushes. I told Andy and Matthew, but we didn't pay too much attention because we were so drunk and high that we weren't even sure if it was our minds playing tricks on us or if we really saw something. We didn't talk much on the way home. When we arrived, we all slept in my room. I have my own bed and my brother's bed. If you're wondering, he doesn't live with me and my parents anymore for personal reasons I won't share. I slept on the floor on an extra mattress and let Andy and Matthew sleep in my brother's bed. We ate a few snacks in my room and then went to sleep because we were so tired. While trying to fall asleep, we whispered to each other until Andy and Matthew finally drifted off after about 10 minutes. As I was trying to sleep, I couldn't stop thinking about the figure I saw on the way home. I calmed myself and eventually fell asleep. I was woken in the middle of the night by a dry, cold breeze. I got up to close the window, which was strange because I remembered closing it earlier. Before lying back down again, I grabbed a glass of water. For a moment, I thought I saw the same figure from earlier. I didn't pay much attention because I assumed it was just a shadow and I was sleepy. After finishing my water, I went back downstairs. When I lay on the mattress on the floor, I turned my head. To my left, Andy was sleeping, and under the bed, I saw a tall creature blending into the darkness. All I could see were its wide, staring eyes and a huge, unnerving smile. I screamed like a girl, terrified, and yelled to Andy and Matthew at the top of my lungs, "Get out of the room with me right now!" They both ran with me and we hid in my parents' bedroom, locking the door until the police arrived. I whispered to the dispatcher so that whatever that thing was couldn't hear me. Outside we could hear slow, heavy footsteps moving from door to door. The steps became more aggressive as it failed to find us. Suddenly, the door we were hiding behind was kicked in with one hit. I gasped in fear. How could someone have enough force to kick down a locked door in one blow? We held our breaths, staying as silent as possible. Just as the intruder searched the room, we heard the wail of police sirens. The man ran, but it was too late. The police caught him. We stayed hidden in the closet until the officers told us it was safe. When we finally came out, we saw him in handcuffs. A huge man, about 7 feet tall, with that same weird grin on his face when he saw us. The police discovered he had escaped from the mental hospital. They contacted my parents, but they couldn't come immediately because they were on a business trip. So I stayed at Andy's house for safety. From that day on, I never walked anywhere without constantly watching my back. This is a true story from when I was about 10 years old. I had invited two of my friends over for a sleepover. Let's call them Ellie and Tina. Back then, I lived right next to a train track, directly across from a level crossing. About a month before the sleepover, they installed a floodlight there, and every night it would shine straight through my bedroom window. I had thin white curtains, so the light would cast shadows inside my room. Trees would move and stretch across the fabric like silhouettes, like almost watching a movie. At the time, it felt normal, until that night. I don't remember much about the beginning of the sleepover, but I remember this part clearly. We were lying on my bed with our feet facing the window. The curtains were drawn and the floodlight was shining through like it always did. We were just talking like normal 10-year-old girls. And then, out of nowhere, something appeared in my window. A figure. It was tall, shaped like a full-grown man, crouching just outside. But something about it wasn't right. The position felt weird, like it was wrong. The shape of the head, wrong. Still, it was clear, solid, not just a shadow, and all three of us saw it. We froze. No one screamed, no one moved. Even now, I don't remember why we didn't run or call for help. We just slowly pulled the covers over ourselves and stayed completely silent. The figure didn't move. It just crouched there, watching, for about 10 minutes. And here's the part that makes no sense. My bedroom was upstairs. Outside the window, there was only a tiny ledge, maybe 2 inches wide. There was no way a person could stand there. Ellie and Tina and I kept peeking out from under the covers, checking if it was still there. And every time, it was. Until finally, we looked out at just the right moment and saw it leap to the right and disappear. Just like that. Gone. I don't remember what happened after that. And strangely, none of us talked about it the next morning. I convinced myself it had just been a dream. Something my mind made up. Years passed. We grew apart, went to different schools, and made new friends. We barely spoke anymore until one day in 11th grade. We were all signing yearbooks before leaving school. Ellie was one of my classmates, so I asked her to sign mine. We started reminiscing about when we were kids. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Hey, do you remember that thing outside your window?" I froze. I looked at her and said, "Wait, you remember that? I thought it was just a dream." We talked about it more, and then I realized I had another class with Tina. So I asked her too, and she remembered it the exact same way. That's when it hit me. It wasn't a dream. It actually happened. That night, I went home and told my dad the whole story. He's always believed in the supernatural, so I thought maybe he'd have an explanation. But instead, he just looked at me, confused. Then he said something I'll never forget.
The floodlights have never faced your window.
It was the last month of summer, so we were all counting the days before school started again. My brother and his friend had been hanging out as much as they could while they still had time. One night, they decided to have a sleepover at our house in the basement. They were just going to watch a movie, and they asked if I wanted to join. I didn't have any other plans that night, so I decided I would join them. The movie ended, and I had turned the TV off because both of them were already asleep. They had also taken the only comfortable spots to sleep, so I decided I would just sleep in my own bed upstairs that night. So I got up, turned the lights off, and started to head upstairs. But before I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard the door that separates the middle floor from the basement stairs open. I stopped. There were two possibilities here. One, the door slipped open on its own because it might have been loose. Two, my dad was trying to scare us, as he does it often as a joke. I ruled out option one because I distinctly heard the doorknob turn. So that meant it was firmly closed before that, and it couldn't have just slipped open. So I decided that it was just my dad. I yelled out, "Dad, this isn't funny. It's like 1 a.m. Nothing. Wow, so he's really dedicated to this prank, I thought as my heart started to beat faster. I began walking up the stairs slowly and quietly, making sure to skip the stairs that creaked more than the others. When I reached the top of the stairs, I saw nothing but a wide opened basement door. The door was still swaying back and forth a bit. If it had just slipped, it would have only been halfway opened, but the door was obviously all the way open. That meant that someone had definitely opened it on their own. I was a little creeped out, so I proceeded with caution. I slowly exited the basement and stopped to think of what I should do next. I decided to find where my dad was hiding, so I checked every room in the middle floor. Keep in mind, it's past midnight, so it's pretty dark out. Also, everyone's asleep, so I couldn't use the main lights, as it could wake somebody up. So I had to just use my phone's flashlight on the lowest possible setting. I checked every room, crevice, dark corner, and even the pantry, but I couldn't find anyone. So I went upstairs to my parents' room. Both of them, my mom and dad, were asleep. I checked my little brother's room, and he was asleep too. Even my dog was sound asleep in my room. I was so freaked out, I went into my room and locked the door. I took a moment to take inventory of everything I knew. I saw my brother and his friend asleep before I left. I didn't see anyone or anything on the middle floor. My parents are both asleep, and so is my little brother. Also, my dog is asleep right next to me. So I went and woke up my dad and told him there might be someone in the house. He looked tired, but a little freaked out, so the both of us started to search the house. When we found nothing, my dad opened the door that leads to the garage. The garage door was closed. So if someone had opened the door, they couldn't have escaped through there, because the garage door was loud and I would have heard it. My dad was too tired to care that much and told me we'd figure it out in the morning, and he went back to sleep. I went back to my room and thought more about what I knew. Literally, the only thing that was Ari was the basement door. Nothing else at all had been changed, and it was clear that the door had been intentionally opened by someone or something, but there was no possible way that whoever had done it could have gotten away without me noticing, until they just vanished into thin air. To this day, I still don't know what happened, and I probably never will. This happened in 2017 when I was 14 years old. I had a friend who lived just down the street from me, and we had been inseparable since the day we met. For the sake of the story, I'll call him Mason. Mason and I had sleepovers as often as possible at both our houses. We would do typical teenage stuff like play Call of Duty, watch movies, and walk around the neighborhood. But this particular sleepover was different. We had both received ghillie suits for our birthdays. If you don't know what a ghillie suit is, picture what snipers wear in movies. Basically a bush you can wear. In hindsight, I can only imagine what we looked like walking around our neighborhood. We wanted to try out our new equipment by ding-dong ditching houses and hiding as close as possible. For context, my neighborhood is still in development, meaning that while there are many houses, there are also plots of land that remained as woods. This detail becomes important later on in the story. The house we decided to target was the neighborhood's infamous hermit house. I'm pretty sure every neighborhood has one of these. A messy, unkept hoarder house where the owner is constantly doing something sketchy or mischievous. I'm pretty sure I'd even seen this guy trying to break into my mom's car, but that's another story. To properly understand the events, you need to know the layout around his house. On both sides of the house were two empty plots of land, and behind his house, through a small wall of trees, ran I-95. If you went left from his backyard, there was a small passage Mason and I had made that led all the way to my backyard. Essentially, it was a narrow trail behind multiple backyard fences, separated from the highway by a thick wall of woods. So our plan was this. I would ring the doorbell and run to the woods on the right side, while Mason watched from the left. As soon as I walked up to the door, before I could even ring it, the door swung open. And I saw two men quickly approaching me. Panic hit and I sprinted. One of them began chasing me immediately. I realized they must have been watching us because when I glanced back, I saw the other man running toward where Mason was positioned. At first, I wasn't too nervous. I knew I was faster. That changed when I noticed the man chasing Mason ahead of me. Mason had unintentionally led the man into the trail on the left side of the property, trapped me between two men on a narrow path. Thinking quickly, I jumped over a fence into their backyard. It may sound reckless, but that decision probably saved me from injury. I knew that once I cleared the fence, I could make it to the front gate, and from there, it would be smooth sailing home. But as soon as I landed on the other side, the scent of death hit me. I gagged and plugged my nose. Looking up, I saw at least 8 dead, rotting chickens. A dog lay decayed beyond recognition, and the scattered around the yard were other animals' carcasses. I didn't stick around to examine them. The sight and smell was horrifying. I ran faster than I ever had and made it home before the man could even reach his front yard. Once inside, I told Mason what I had seen. We considered calling the police but decided against it, fearing we'd get in trouble for trespassing and for creating the trail. To this day, I don't know how the unforgettable stench stayed trapped in the backyard and didn't spread into the trail. I also don't know why these creepy people had so many dead animals. Maybe it's better that I don't know. I moved out of the house a few months later, and nothing like that ever happened again. Mason still lives on that street, and on the rare occasions we hang out, we can't help but wonder what those men were doing with all of those animals. If you made it this far, you already know something wasn't right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might be even worse, and it might be yours. Sleep tight if you can.